To extend that message of solidarity to the solidarity campaigns around the world who this week are commemorating the Nakba. The catastrophe involved the expulsion of 750,000 Palestinians from their homes, the destruction of hundreds of villages, and in many ways, most importantly, the destruction of the state of Palestine. It was not a land without a people. That is the myth that Israel perpetuates today, that there was no state prior to the establishment of the State of Israel. There was a state, that was the State of Palestine. To those people who were cleansed from Palestine during that time, we have not forgotten you, and we have not forgotten that your deaths and your expulsion were part of a bigger plan that was the ethnic cleansing to make way for the creation of the Jewish state of Israel. A policy of ethnic cleansing which continues today, and essentially, as one of the Israeli ministers recently described, an attempt at a Holocaust, and they used that word quite deliberately, a Holocaust of the Palestinian people. We repeat our call on the Irish and British governments to impose sanctions on the Israeli state, to divest from Israel, and to boycott all Israeli produce. Do not trade with Israel in our name. Do not trade with that rogue state. And finally, we'd just like to call on you as individuals and as people to become a part of the solidarity movement.
Here on the streets of Belfast, we're sending a very clear message of solidarity and support to our brothers and sisters on the streets of Bethlehem, Nablus, Hebron, Jerusalem, Gaza, and they know we're out here today, and they know that their supporters are out in cities across this planet, in reaffirming the policy of the Irish Congress of Trade Unions, which is also to say to the Irish government and to the British government, stop investing in Israel, stop trading with Israel, boycott Israeli goods, stand firm in the face of what can only be described as one of the most heinous crimes on this planet. Nowhere are the powers that be so silent as they are when it comes to what is happening to the people of Palestine. And that is unacceptable to all of us, and that cannot happen in our name. And in this year, when the world does celebrate the 60th anniversary of the International Declaration of Human Rights, we need to challenge where we can the fact that that declaration was breached at birth, was breached before many of us standing here were born, and was breached throughout our lives and continues to be breached. I am so pleased to see that not only are the solidarity organisations and trade union organisations around the world standing up at this time to commemorate the Nakba, but so too are many Jewish people. There are Jewish people with us today who stand in solidarity here in Belfast with their brothers and sisters in Palestine. And there are prominent Jewish people around the world who are also speaking out.
When we talk of the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people, we are talking about one of the great crimes of the 20th century. And not a crime which was committed in any furtive way, out of sight of the eyes of the world, but a crime which was committed in broad daylight and which is today openly defended by the most powerful people on earth, indeed held up as a glorious episode in the history of humanity. The brilliant Israeli historian Ilan Pappé, in his book published last year, The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine, has described in relentless, meticulous detail how the ethnic cleansing operation was planned and executed, and described the involvement in it of those who were to become the highest officials of the new Israeli state. The justification, so to speak, for all that had to do with the Holocaust in Europe. In other words, the Palestinian people were made to pay, and are still today being made to pay, for a crime committed in Europe by Europeans. What a horrible inversion of morality is involved in that. We should not allow ourselves to be guilt-tripped by references to the Holocaust, because it is my experience that when we encounter anti-Semitism, it is not in the context of Palestinian solidarity. It is not in the context of anti-war activity. Almost invariably, anti-Semitism, as it is commonly understood, is expressed by the very people who also stand in the forefront of defending the oppression of the Palestinian people. The Palestinian people have fought literally for generations. You can go now among the Palestinian people and find people who are refugees from refugee camps. So long have they been in exile. We must be the day when we can meet the Palestinian people free in their historic capital. I say for Palestine, today in Belfast, next year in Jerusalem.
It's 60 years and 3 days of terror, dispossession, expulsion and refuge for the Palestinians. It's 21,903 days since the day of Nakba, the catastrophe, the Arabic word for catastrophe. But catastrophe or Nakba is not just simply an event, a historical event. It is an ongoing process of dispossession, ongoing process of ethnic cleansing, 1947 to 1949, where 82% of indigenous Palestinian people were driven out, uprooted from their homelands to be expelled to neighboring countries or to become internally disposed inside Palestine. Between 1949 and middle 50s, a further 15% of the Palestinians were driven out of Palestine. In 1967, 35% of those who were living in the West Bank, Gaza, East Jerusalem were also expelled out of Palestinian territories. Today, we see this Nakba, this process, ethnic cleansing process, continuing through the racist separation wall, through the expansion of the illegal settlements, through making lives of the Palestinians impossible inside Palestinian territories. So the Nakba is still continuing, it didn't finish. We are not here to weep about the Nakba, but to affirm and confirm our position that the direct result of the Nakba, which is the issue of the refugees, 6 million to 7 million refugees outside their original homes and land, are still waiting for the day to go back to their homeland. There is no peace without justice, and there is no justice without the return of the refugees. So there is no peace in the area without the right of refugees to go back to their original homelands, not in the West Bank, not in Gaza Strip, but in Jaffa, Haifa, in Safed, in Eilat, in Beersheba, in every single town and city and village of the Palestinians where they were driven and uprooted from. What we are saying today, we will never forget. Forgiveness might come later, but we will never forget our right.